Hi, my name is Drew Waddell, and I've been doing film photography for over 5 years while living in 6 different countries and traveling through many more. And during that time, I've made almost every single mistake that you can make when getting into film. By the end of this video, you will have all the information you need to take your first step into film photography, including what cameras and lenses to buy, how to develop and scan film, the basic vocabulary you need to understand what the hell photographers are talking about, as well as several tips that are going to save your time and money. Let's get into it. Buying a camera can be overwhelming, but it's an exciting experience, so allow me to be something of your camera sommelier. I suggest starting with a Nikon F-Series, Olympus OM1, Canon AE1, or Pentax K1000. All of these cameras are single lens reflexes, SLRs, which means they have a mirror that lets you look through the lens, so you know exactly what's going to be included in the frame when you take a photo. They're also reliable, affordable, widely available, and offer a great introduction to the world of film photography. Not only that, but they're also often sold with a lens included as a bundle. And there are 2 categories of lenses that you should be aware of: prime lenses and zoom lenses. Prime lenses offer a fixed focal length. In other words, you cannot zoom in or out. The only way to include more or less in the scene is by moving closer or further away from your subject. Zoom lenses allow you to zoom, but at the cost of image quality, size, and weight. They're also much less common and much more expensive, so I would recommend sticking to primes for film cameras. The focal length is indicated by a number on the lens: 50mm, 28mm, 35mm lens, etc. If you have an iPhone, the standard lens is a 24mm and the zoom lens or 2x lens is a 50mm. The lower the number, the wider the focal length. The larger, the more zoomed in. The other aspect of lenses that you should understand is the aperture, which dictates how much light the lens can let in. Lenses are sold by the maximum aperture size. The smaller the number, the wider the aperture. Thus, an f1.4 lens will let in more light than an f2.8 lens. But a byproduct of being able to let in more light is that less of the scene will be in focus, which is actually ideal for portrait photography because it allows you to isolate your subject from the background. But on the other hand, lenses with wide apertures need a lot more glass to let in all that light, which means that they will be significantly larger and heavier than an f2.8 lens at the same focal length. The cameras I talked about earlier will often come bundled with a 50mm f1.4, which is the same focal length as the 2x lens on your iPhone. This pairing of aperture and focal length is great, because despite having a wide aperture, these lenses are still typically small, light, and cheap. But as you know from using your iPhone, the 2x lens isn't good for everything, so for a second lens, I would recommend a 35mm or 28mm, which are better for taking photos in a small space or group photos. Now that you know what to buy, where should you buy it? The best place to buy cameras and lenses is from a local store, because it lets you get a feel for the camera before spending any money. The second best is from a reputable seller on a website like eBay, which gives you access to an immense amount of options from all over the world. Just remember, for either option, if there are multiple copies of the same camera, please do not waste your money on getting a mint condition film camera. If the cameras both work the same, just save the money and use it to buy film. And just as digital sensors come in different varieties, so does film. Film comes in various different sizes, from large format sheet film to medium format 120 film to 35mm and 110 film. Today, I'm going to be talking exclusively about 35mm, which is the most common size. Make sure you're buying 35mm film, which will have 35 or 135 written on the box itself. It's much more squat than 120 film. And as a bonus tip, 35mm films come with a typical maximum of 36 shots per roll. There are also rolls that only have 24 or 27 shots. I would really recommend sticking to the 36 shot rolls because the price of the 24 shot roll may be cheaper, but the price of development and scanning does not change at all, so you're ultimately getting worse value. And there's also several different types of film, called film stocks. And each film stock offers its unique color rendition, contrast, and grain structure. For beginners, I would recommend starting with a forgiving film like Kodak Ultramax 400 or Fuji Superia 400. These are super versatile color films suitable for a range of lighting conditions. And they won't burn a hole straight through your wallet like a high-end film like Portra. And those numbers at the end of the film's name are their ISO, which is a measure of their sensitivity to light. A higher number means that the film will be better for shooting in low light, but it will also mean that your photos have more grain and are generally less detailed. Furthermore, higher ISO films are less common, which means that some labs will outsource the work to partners, which can take the time to get your scans from a matter of hours to days or weeks. If you want your lab to develop your film and not your patients, then start with a standard issue film like Ultramax or Superia. Film is also expensive, so understanding exposure is crucial to avoiding waste. The vast majority of films are negatives, which means that the image recorded onto the film is completely inverted in terms of light and dark. Color films are also inverted in this way, in addition to being color reversed. But relax, because scanning and processing negatives fixes this, and thanks to this quirk of chemistry, negative films are much more forgiving for overexposure than digital sensors. On the other hand, underexposing film even mildly can result in a discolored mess. So use an external light meter or your camera's internal meter to expose properly. You can also try the Sunny 16 rule, which is a general guide for exposure. Overall, because of film's insensitivity to overexposure, when in doubt, set your camera conservatively, and you'll likely still get usable images. After you finish your roll, you're going to want to develop those photos. The development process is where your image on the film strip comes to life. I would recommend that you start by taking or sending your film to a lab. Look for a lab with quick turnaround times and good baseline scanning options. I've learned from using over a dozen labs on 3 continents that a genuinely good barometer for the quality of a lab is whether or not their website looks like it was designed by millennials. If you can smell craft IPA through your computer screen, the scan quality is going to be on point and you're going to get an easy web download. Conversely, some large camera store chains who you'd expect to be competent are so slow you'd think they're sending your scan data through their fax machines. They also often exclusively provide scans via disk, which is like, holy shit man, get with the times. You can also totally develop your film yourself, but understand that it takes a significant amount of time, and that color film is much more difficult to develop than black and white. Lastly, scanning. Once your film is developed, you can scan the negatives using a film scanner, or have them scanned at a photo lab. This digital conversion allows you to share your work online or make digital edits. If you entrust your film to a lab, I would urge that you do not upsell yourself on the scan quality options. Good labs cater to professionals as well as amateurs, and offer a variety of options that can swiftly take the price of scanning one roll of film from under $10 to over $20. So be realistic about your needs and only go for the high quality options if you are absolutely positive that you captured some masterpieces. On the other hand, scanning yourself is also very possible, and there are a variety of methods to do it. When I was living in Italy, I would develop my film myself and scan them with just my iPhone, with surprisingly good results. In the US, I would have a film lab develop my photos and then scan them with my digital camera. In NYC, I used New York Street Photography Collective's lab to scan my already developed rolls. And don't overlook the resources that may be available on your campus if you're a university student. You may be surprised to find a photography club that has a lab or scanning equipment that is nearly free for you to use. Now, in Japan, I typically just get the standard lab development and scanning to save money and time. But if I want better quality prints, then I'll scan them myself with a dedicated film scanner. I know this is a lot of information, but I want to open your eyes to what is possible if you put in just a little bit of effort into researching the options in your city. Let a lab handle your first few rolls. But look into these options because they can all save you time or money. Once you get your scans, post-process your photos as you please, either on your phone or in an app like Lightroom, and share them to the world. But the best way to share your photos, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that this is the most important part of the video, print your photos. It is not only about having a physical copy of your work. Printing your photos gives you a tangible connection to the moments you captured, a piece of art that you can hold in your hands. It does not matter how good or bad you think you are at photography, because having a physical print will bring a new level of appreciation for your work and engage you in a process of reflection that will completely change the way you take photos. Seeing your work in print can provide a different perspective, enabling you to examine your strengths and identify areas for improvement. And I understand that printing is not as exciting as buying a new camera or scanning or whatever, but there's no better way to find and appreciate your own photographic style than by printing your photos. Printing can also be as confusing as photography itself, so I will be making a video soon that will explain all the basic information you need to know about printing and framing your photos. Printing is the most important thing you can do for your photography. So subscribe and keep an eye out for that video. Now this video is just a starting point. There's a borderline infinite amount of topics to explore, so if there's a subject that you would like to see explored in more detail, then leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, subscribe, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or in the comments. Once again, this is Drew Waddell, signing out from Tokyo. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.